Each June, thousands of people head to GingerMan Raceway in South Haven, Michigan for the GRIDLIFE Midwest Festival. In the past couple of years, we've shifted it to September during the global pandemic, but it's time to shift it back to its traditional June date and bring back where speed meets sound. Hi everybody, Kyle Heyer joined by Greg Kramer. Upcoming GRIDLIFE Touring Cup race number 3, Greg. This is our 4th season of GRIDLIFE Touring Cup action. A couple of years ago, 2019, it was my first ever GRIDLIFE event, and it was the second ever GLTC race. In 2019, that was the only time I've ever called a June festival race here. But now we're back, and time for our 3rd race of the weekend after that exciting top 10 shootout this morning.
And it was that. I mean, we really, we had a couple of nice surprises, some guys that really threw down some laps. Unfortunately, one of the drivers had a little bit of an issue mechanically and is going to start a little bit farther back. But it was a very compelling qualifying session, and it's just the top 10 that changes. Everybody else, based on how they finished in round 2 yesterday, from 11th on back, will start in race finish order. And we're looking forward to this being a good one. I was just out wandering around, checking out a couple of things, felt the occasional 1 or 2 drops. So there is still moisture in the air. It is not coming down much. Checked with a couple of the GRIDLIFE officials, and they said that previous rain during the track battle session, they said it was very, very light and didn't last that long. And they said right now the track is fast. And so that's going to be, good news. We have a track battle session out now. That's just wrapping up. That's going to polish this track, clean it up even more. I think we're going to have a really good racetrack for this 3rd race.
And again, you mentioned the top 10 shootout. Reigning champ Jeremy Swenson will sit on the front row for that. We'll roll through the starting lineup when cars roll off for about 7 minutes from turning over the field from Group C time attack to GRIDLIFE Touring Cup. You'll see the tree in the center of the racetrack there. You see those hoops with all the pool noodles and stuff on them. Those are obstacles put up by the safety crew for the drone pilots here this weekend to go sail on through. And a couple of the drone pilots have already indulged in sailing on through there and having a good time. And again, thanks to the GingerMan safety crew. They do a great job keeping our track safe and clean for all the competition here this weekend. Let's have a look at our track map here, Greg. This is a 2.21-mile racetrack that was built back in 1995. It originally was a little bit shorter. They've extended it from 1.88 miles to 2.21 miles, and all the way down through turn number 1. It's a kind of a short front straightaway. You head over a slight crest into that first corner, then into turn 2, very, very flat, and then into turn 3, where things really start to get wild and high speed.
They do. Up into 3, right as you brake, it crests a little hill, and so you got to be very, very delicate on your braking. Flat out through 4. 5 is a balancing act to set up and then rotate through 6. Get on the throttle. It's an easy place for the back to step out. Up into 7, you've got to run way out at the exit of 7. Really stay far left to line up correctly to flick through those S's, 8 and 9. And that long run from 8 through 9 up into 10 is another spot where you're absolutely on the edge of adhesion. And right as you tighten up a little bit through 9, it's an opportunity for that back end to step out. So you're really balancing things. Turn 10, really critical. Late apex, get the car rotated, get to power early. Longest straight is 10B down into 11, which is the best overtaking area on the track.
It always makes me nervous when you got drivers on grid. These guys are so good at climbing in their cars in a minute or 2. You'll see Tom especially roaming around, 30 seconds before he's supposed to be in the car. These guys just like to walk around and high-five and talk about the upcoming race before they climb in. Andrew Reyes putting the helmet on top of the car. That car is prepped and ready. All the way at the back of the field, though, and we'll try to get a shot of it when we roll off the grid. All the way at the tail of the field, there's Jeremy Swenson, our pole sitter, dropping into line. It will be the number 18 of Colton Wade. Has a brand new livery on the car here this weekend. It's gold and white and red, has a very classic looking kind of spoof livery on it, and it is a very striking car. So that car will be all the way about 50th place. We'll have to get a look at it before we go racing and go green here this afternoon.
Let's tease you with, when you see that car, if you know your open wheel IndyCar racing history, think Danny Sullivan. That's all we'll say. It's pretty cool. The other car that we're going to be keeping a serious eye on that'll start at the back is Brian Heitkotter. Big issues yesterday. Did a complete swap yesterday evening. They were up on the dyno this morning, and he said, yeah, everything looks good. If it dynos well, we're going to be ready to go, and he'll be a mover for sure.
Yeah, I talked to him a little bit last night. He said there was some kind of bearing or something in the transmission that they couldn't quite figure out why it became a problem all of a sudden, because that car has been just dead reliable since they introduced it a couple of years ago, and only recently has it started this week has had issues. So not exactly sure what the gremlins are under the hood of that Nissan 370Z, but that team has done the work to get it prepped for this third race. Hopefully they'll get some track time. There is Eric Jensen slotting into line, as well as Matan Rosenberg, who will roll off in 7th. Again, a phenomenal run in the GLTC Top 10 shootout earlier today. That's that red Miata backing in right now with the Hawk logos on the rear end. 18 years old and continues to impress us, not only with his maturity, but also with his pace.
Yeah, exactly. And they've worked hard at building the reliability into this car. And he and his crew of friends and family have done a superb job of that. And of everybody in that top 10 shootout, Kyle, of the few that were really hustling the car, throwing it around a little bit, Matan was the one who made it pay off. The others actually either had an issue or just overstepped it on occasion. Matan was right on the edge, and I thought that was one of the best qualifying runs I have seen him put in. Really, really good. In his first top 10 shootout, he showed he belongs.
Yeah, he put in the effort for sure, and it paid off for him. In the short term, we'll see if he can capitalize on it for a race. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see that silver number 767. That's the Red Eye Racing BMW M3 of Wesley Case. So Wes is lined up a little bit outside the top 10, and he's had a pretty decent weekend as well. On the far left, Patrick Reyes in the stickered up livery. This is a brand new livery for Patrick here this weekend, and again, celebrating Pride Month. Patrick's got some very bright colors on that car. Art from Takashi Murakami on that car, that number 68. Well, hopefully we'll see him have a solid event. There is Lewis Chatroop slotting into line. Talked with Ryan Upham last night. He said he was having some issues getting the car into gear, and I was watching them try to move the shift around. It was just off by about 1/8 of an inch. Couldn't quite slot everything in how they needed. They've adjusted that, and hopefully they'll be all set for today.
And there's a couple of guys doing a little bench racing down there. Tom O'Gorman, I think that's Robert Thorne.
Robert Thorne, Andy Smedgard just off screen to the right, and Solomon's on the left there.
All right, now I'm just upset with Robert Thorne because it was quite a few years ago when I announced him in World Challenge. I look a lot worse. He looks exactly the same. That's not right.
Gave him a fist bump a couple minutes ago. He's hyped and ready. He'll be starting right behind Swenson. Remember their run into turn 1. They had a little bit of a tiny baby touch, but they were all happy and shaking hands and high-fiving after that one. And look at Andy Smedgard, all those winner stickers on the A-pillar. Yeah. Every time you win a race, you get one of those stickers. Now, he has some from 2021 as well. And I designed those. I was supposed to put a 22 on them so you could just specify what year. But Andy's just going to sticker the whole car up with them, I think, at some point. And that's what it looks like right now. Belting in, though.
Well, he's on his way to that, isn't he?
Yeah, he certainly is.
I mean, yesterday he got his 5th win of just this year alone.
Yeah, he's certainly in a great position to add more. So GLTC Race 3 about to kick off here, Greg. Again, 12 to 15-minute events, very short races. We haven't gone our full 15 minutes yet this weekend, once because we had to do a couple cleanups. Yep. The other, we just ran a little short. That left both times our winner kind of far out in front of the field. The great battles were in the mid-pack. There always is good mid-pack battles. I think for race 3, our good battle is going to shift forward into the front 5, though. I
think so. And in this race, the mission that if Robert Thorne wants to win this, he has got to get around Swenson right at the start. He has got to get in front and control things until Swenson uses up those tires a little bit with that heavier Corvette so that Thorne can then maintain that. I think that's going to be important. I don't think Thorne's can't do it if he doesn't get that achieved, but if he does it, it will make life a lot easier for him, to be sure. The other story is Paul Curley, who's been very quick in the previous 2 races, fighting fourths, really in the hunt, and we expected him to be easily in the top 5 in that top 10 shootout. And during his fast lap, that blue Corvette suddenly had an issue coming out of 3 through 4 and 5. We thought it was water that was coming out from behind that right front tire. Turns out it had thrown a belt earlier in the lap, and we were seeing the shredded remains of the belt that came out, and he just pulled it over and said, I'm not going to finish this lap. I'll blow the engine up. So it's all fixed. He's ready to go, but you could be pretty sure from that 10th spot he's going to be anxious to make some moves early. Yeah, and again, we know Paul Curley can drive very well defensively. He had Matt Waldbaum trailing him all of race 2. They high-fived and hugged after that one as well. That was a pretty fierce battle, too. So sometimes you worry that the result is not going to be high-fives and hugs, but that's what we do here in GridLife Touring Cup. We race fierce on the racetrack, and after at the end of the day, you're sharing a beer and talking about how awesome it was. Well, what this paddock has shown is you can race door-to-door as fierce as any paddock in the country at any level, but do it with respect.
It challenges the notion that rubbing is racing, Greg, right? I mean, we hear that a lot. Rubbing is racing, you know, trading paint. And there is some truth to a little bit of door contact in the heat of the moment being probably mildly acceptable, but that's not how you pass people. And we've sort of had a turnover in how grassroots racing is done in this series, and I'm just so proud of the drivers and the management, Adam Jabay, and his vision to clean up grassroots racing and make it sustainable long term, because as he mentioned in the drivers meeting, people get burned out of this because it gets expensive and body work is just not fun to do. So the more and more that the more races you can get through without doing body work, the better, and many of these cars have been here for 3 or 4 years.
Well, think about it. We've got a 55-car field at a 2.21-mile track, and we've had just a couple incidents of some little door-to-door or just light touches. The official, I checked into it because I talked to Swenson last night, so I checked into it, and that little touch, the official thing on that was there was no contact.
Right.
And that was because the officials went to them and said, "Did you guys have a touch out there?" And both he and Thorne said, "Nah, it was close, but we're fine." They had already talked about it. They said it didn't do any damage at all, and they said that was just part of it. It was good close racing, and that's the kind of respect you love to have in this paddock, and that's why we have this level of racing here. And think about it. It isn't an hour, 2 hour, 6 hour race where you could take your time and work some strategy and get up there. If you want to win in a 15-minute race, it's go time, and they're still doing it very, very cleanly.
If you've never heard or never seen GridLife Touring Cup, you're in for a treat. These races are very short sprint races, 12 to 15 minutes. The rule set is based on power to weight. So you'll see V8s share the racetrack with 4 cylinders, share it with inline 6s and V6s. They'll share it with minivans and pickup trucks and coupes and sedans. And it's the variety that makes this series what it is. Power to weight, modifiers for additional aero. So if you want to add aero or a wing and a splitter, okay. You just have to add a couple pounds of ballast now because that's an advantageous part to add. And it ends up creating a paddock full of cars that are wildly different from each other that all make the same lap time. Not in the same way, which is going to be a key that we're going to see with Robert Thorne and Jeremy Swenson here shortly, but they make roughly the same lap time, and the drivers just have to play to their car's strengths.
Absolutely, and this is a track that puts, I think, more of a premium on handling than outright horsepower. Yeah, you've got the run from 10B into 11, and this little chute from 11 down into turn 1, and getting out of 10 and 11 with a nice launch of power isn't going to hurt you for sure. But if that's your only 2 spots on the track where you're stronger than another car and the rest of it they are, if they can get around you, they'll probably drive away from you. So that makes, and the defensive stature that we see here every once in a while is really creative, because you've also got rules on, you can't, block. You get one move and it can't come in reaction to somebody chasing you and the like. And so you can defend, but you've got to be really creative in how you do it and put your car right where you think somebody else is going to go. So that just makes the racing really compelling too. And you guys use this term when you're announcing this series a lot, cork in a bottle. You get that one guy who's maybe run his tires off a little bit and doing everything he possibly can to keep people behind, and it goes from 2 cars behind him to 4 to 6. And what does that do? Phenomenal racing.
Thousands of people have crowded along the banners here at GingerMan Raceway. Once a year, we just pack this place full from end to end. 2.5 miles of racetrack, and it feels like 8 miles of paddock space that we've jammed in here.
It does.
There is not a spare inch to park a car in this facility right now, and the campsite is full as well.
And this track would be defined as a club track, right?
Yes.
I have never seen a club track this packed, ever. With certainly the paddock is full, but you look every available, look at that, of camping space, it is jammed, and that's part music festival, but also a huge part of the competition here and the variety of stuff.
Look at that paddock. That's a great shot.
It is.
Look at the RTR truck there. You've got Falcon and Hyundai with trucks and activations. Valvoline is here with their influencers as well. But we got the showcase over by the pond over there. But just thousands of people all finding places to enjoy motorsport and music, and this is it. Paul Darling on the scooter heading out to the split zone. He's the man in the orange. He's going to be deciding which lane everyone starts in. The pole sitter has the right to choose. After that, the splitter is going to choose left or right. Again, everyone is an odd number will be on the inside. Everyone an even number will be on the outside. That will be driver's right, but Darling just going to take his scooter out on track. It's a little tough to split people on the pit lane because it narrows down on exit, so they're doing this on the racetrack here this weekend, and Paul is going to do this out here, then scooter back on pace lap number 2. All right.
And Smedegaard just in yesterday's second race chose the outside at
yes.
the pole.
And because if you still have your driver alongside you, your front row starter, if the second place car is still alongside you, you want that right side for turn number 2. It's a longer corner than turn 1. That's the advantageous place to be. So Paul Darling standing out there waiting for the cars to roll. And in just a moment, we'll bring you the full starting lineup here based on our top 10 shootout and our race 2 results. I'll bring you through the top 10. Greg, you'll take me through position number 30, and then I'll take care of the rest. How does that sound to you?
Sounds like a plan.
So Paul Darling waiting there. He's got his radio and his GRIDLIFE overalls.
And one last thing just to mention about when Smedegaard chose that outside, the guy he was going to be starting next to him was his teammate, Tom O'Gorman. And as they came to the green, O'Gorman was lagging intentionally because they're teammates, they're friends, and Tomo had no intention of trying to pass Andy into one. He just tucked in. We're not going to see that same scenario here with Swenson and Thorne, believe me.
Well, Paul looking around, checking out the sights and sounds of GRIDLIFE Midwest. And here he sits waiting for the field to roll off. And I hear clutches slipping and cars rolling here, Greg. So
awesome.
Let's kick things off. Our starting lineup for GRIDLIFE Touring Cup race number 3. On row number 1, in the number 30 for Viking Performance, will be Jeremy Swenson, our reigning champion, alongside the number 180 from ASM and Shaky Dog, Robert Thorne. In row number 2, it's going to be Andy Smedegaard in the number 212 from ASM, starting alongside the number 44 AKG Motorsport BMW of Kerry James. Row number 3 is going to be Ronnie Solomon in the 777 and the number 90 from ASM of Matt Waldbaum. 2 ASM cars on that third row. Row 4, youngster Matan Rosenberg in the 484 and Eric Jensen with the G-Speed LS Swap FRS in the 184 in 8th. In row number 5, Eric Meadows in the number 3, and Paul Curley, after that issue he had in the top 10 shootout, he rolls off 10th in the number 45.
And in row 6, it'll be Zach Lavoie in the number 42 ASM S2000 will start 11th, starting 12th. The 47 of Jeff Preston in row 7, starting 13th, will be the number 13 Ryan Upham. Starting 14th will be the 469 of Ryan Christoph. In row 8, starting 15th, the 99 of Andrew Rains. Starting 16th, the 26 of Louis Chatroop. In row 9, starting 17th, the 767 of Wes Case. Starting in the 18th spot will be the 23 of Jake Jorenstad. In row 10, it'll be the number 144 of Vitas Aranaxis. I didn't get that right again. I'm sorry, Vitas. And the 527 of Jackson Jensen. Starting in the 11th spot, the 113 of Wesley Penn. The 28 of Steve Pruden will start 22nd. Row 12, the 23 position will be held by the 871 of Aramis Carrozas and the number 24 starting spot, the 567 of Dan Capaldo. Starting 13th, the number 88 of, or in the 13th row, starting 25th, the number 88 of Fiona Liu, who's doing a really good job this weekend. And the 26th spot will be occupied by the 171 of Joel Morrison. 14th row, we'll see starting 27th, the 117 of Nick Sartor. And the number 290 of Matthew Park will be starting in the 28th spot. And completing row 15, in the 29th starting spot, the 36 of Tyler Starr and the number 46 of Bill Griffin.
Starting in row 16, the number 6 of Michael Kritikos, alongside the 213 and 32nd, Scott Robertson for Robertson Racing. Behind them in row number 17, Hans Horpedal, the number 77 for Myriad Motorsports. He'll start alongside the 34th place car, the 261 of Brad Kosiba. Behind them, row 18, the 898 from Robertson Racing, Brian DeFries, and the 36th place starter, Thomas Moss for Brofab. 37th, the number 404 of Jeremy Myers, and the 38 from Hawk Performance, Seth Gale, the number 541. In row number 20, Bob Dice in the number 17 Honda Civic, and Patrick Reyes in 40th in the number 68 S2000. Row number 21 is going to be Clayton Fitzpatrick in the 71 Corvette, and Richard Sawecki in the number 528 Mazda Miata. Behind them, the 55 of Stephen Cox and the 43 of Joe Tullo will share row 22. Then Carl Carl Hurdle in the HMA Racing Honda Odyssey starts 45th in the number 4. He'll be alongside Cameron Recknagel in the number 9 in 46th. 47th will be Michael Hersen in the number 710 and Felipe Gonzalez from Myriad Motorsports in 48th. 49th, James Houghton in the number 41 had issues all weekend. He don't think he's going to make the grid for this one, unfortunately. David Rudzinski might make it, he might not. I know one driver that will. Tom O'Gorman rounds out the rest of the grid and should be the 18 of Colton Wade as well.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing his drive through the pack along with Heitkotter. Should be coming up through there as well. And it's Vitas Aranaskas. I just needed to get it right once here. So we're looking forward to it. But yeah, this is going to be really superb. But we have to do 2 pace laps here just to be able to get all of the cars out of the grid, the pre-grid onto the track, and be able to get them lined up. So there's the field as it is working now, getting ready for the start of this 3rd race of the weekend.
Yeah, David Rudzinski is out there in the Chevrolet S10 K-Swap. Happy to see that he made it out for another race. That truck, again, the gearing not optimal for the racing here this weekend, but he is enjoying his time. Brian Heitkotter is out there as well. We failed to mention him. That Chris Forsberg Racing 370Z will start at the tail of the field after swapping an engine last night. And as I mentioned, Colton Wade in that gold BMW M3 is out there as well. We'll have to get a look at that livery. On board with the number 212 of Andy Smedegaard. He'll be in row number 2. It's a great shot right behind ASM Shaky Dog teammate Robert Thorne, but he'll start probably directly behind Jeremy Swenson. So that'll be an interesting duo to follow each other into turn 1.
Yeah, and just a quick update on checking with Eric Jensen. If you remember, he had a really good lap going and then overshot and went off the outside of turn 10. He said that based on the predictive, that cost him 2 seconds. And you look at the time that he would have had if he would have got through 10 just average clean, he would have been starting like 4th. So he said, I know I've got a fast race car, so I think we're going to be enjoying him coming up from his 8th place starting spot as well.
Well, 54 cars strong, entering turn number 2 and getting prepped for our 12 to 15 minute race. You're watching GridLife Touring Cup. If you'd like to learn more about this series, visit grid.life. And if you want to see the current points, grid.life/GLTC-points will get you the points heading into the weekend. Tom O'Gorman was leading coming into the weekend, but he likely will not be when he leaves based on that issue he had in race number 2 and his starting position for race number 3. The sound in the sky is alight with performance from 54 cars. 30 years between our oldest and newest car. And we have a couple V8s and a couple 4-cylinders. So we've got a whole other 4-cylinder worth of engine that is between our min and our max displacement. And a whole bunch of different aerodynamic setups here. In the background, you see that Rudd's Racing pickup truck. And just beyond that, the orange and blue of Brian Heitkotter. And then that gold M3 you see weaving back and forth. That gold BMW, Colton Wade, they put in so much effort to get that car here and on the grid today. And he always just has the best vibes. Every time you talk to Colton and team from Fields Auto Works, look at that car.
That is so sharp. Danny Sullivan, kart champion back in the day, using that livery on this car, it looks superb.
It looks great, and again, the Fields Auto Works guys, they had a lot of attrition in terms of their components in the transmission, but they have put the effort in, and they had a smile on their faces the whole time. Just some of the best people to talk to in the entire paddock. I'm thrilled that they can race with us in race number 3. Rudzinski again at the tail of the field. I love that truck so much.
I know. We asked Colton, we said, starting in the back, what is your goal for this race? And he didn't say, I hope to make the top 10 or I hope to make the top 20. His goal was, I just want to put on a show for you guys.
He said, watch me.
So that's going to be fun.
There's Michael Hersen in the FCP Euro BMW E30. That car was the car that started FCP Euro back in the day. They've had it kind of sitting around in the shop for a while, and now they've got it decaled up and ready to go wheel-to-wheel racing for the first time in a while.
One of the things I wanted to ask Swenson was, how aggressive are you going to be in this race? Because with Smedegaard getting a win in a DNF, O'Gorman getting a win in a DNF, Swenson came into this race 4th in the points, but only 15 out of the lead. He's at 2 seconds. He's got a huge opportunity here to make up a ton of ground in those points. So do you go for the win, but risk throwing it away? What do you do? We're about to find out.
15 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes up on the board here for GridLife Touring Cup race number 3. Thanks for watching coverage of GridLife Midwest. It's 2022, and it's time to go racing again. Green flag flies, and we're racing in GLTC. Swenson and Thorne drag racing to turn 1.
Boy, Thorne timed it beautifully, went right with Swenson, and if he can stay around the outside, Swenson has to give him that spot. It paid off. Thorne leads into turn 2.
Thorne's got him. He clears Swenson for a moment. A little bit of dust and debris kicking out in the background. Swenson crosses over Thorne now at corner exit. Thorne goes defensive on the backstretch towards turn 3.
Up into this tricky braking zone. You crest the hill, then you turn immediately. And look at Smedegaard almost getting into the back of Swenson. He got a great run up and through 3.
Over the curbs at the exit of 3, but couldn't carry the speed on corner exit. Swenson is still all over Thorne as they head into turn 5 and 6. And Kerry James in the 44 is right there as well. Matt Waldbaum rounds out the top 5 as they switch through turns 5 and 6.
Yeah, Kerry has really been impressive here this weekend. He's one of these guys that is always in contention for that top 5. And what Thorne wants to do now is try and open up a little margin and make Swenson chase him and use up the tires on that heavier Corvette. And right now, for Thorne, probably his best friend on the track might well be Smedegaard.
Look at the dancing that the Corvette's doing on the suspension as they head towards turn 10B. On the brakes, on the binders, into one of the slowest corners on the racetrack. Cars in the background making a move. I think that's Matan Rosenberg trying to get to the inside of one of the BMWs. Or no, rather, that is one of the S2. Oh, that's Jensen that was side by side with Rosenberg for a moment. So those two drag racing now. Matan's going to lose this one, unfortunately, to the LS Power. Here comes Solomon on teammate Matt Waldbaum.
Good battle between those ASM cars for that final spot in the top 5. And then it's Rosenberg holding station. And we had talked about it. It's a possibility for Rosenberg that as this race unfolds, he might be quicker
Look at this.
than others. Oh, wow. 3 abreast at the start-finish line.
Jackson Jensen down the inside, 3 wide into turn number 1. He's going to get out okay. They're going to cycle it back single file. Here's Louis Chatroop on the back of Eric Meadows. Behind them, Zach Lavoie, Andrew Rains, and more. Great battles in the mid-pack here. There's Matan Rosenberg. He lost a spot to Curley in turn 1. Curley had a big run coming and took the opportunity.
Yep, and now for Matan, it's just hustle, pressure Curley if he can, stay with him, and again, try and get that heavier car to eat those tires up a little bit to be in position. But the problem is that Meadows is chomping at the bit right behind Rosenberg right now. He's right there.
And Louis Chatroop is not too far off of the distance either, so if you start to get tangled with the driver ahead, look in the mirror. You've got 50 more behind you ready to take up the slack when they smell blood in the water. Through turn 7 and 8, Jensen now leads over Curley, but Curley is coming. Despite that setback he had in the top 10 shootout, he is closing in on the drivers in front. Same can be said for Swenson, keeping the pressure on Thorne.
And Thorne, just a beautiful job. He didn't move over so much. He massively compromised his turn into 10, but he moved over enough to dissuade Swenson from trying to get down the inside. And that's Robert Thorne's experience. He's done a lot of racing and very fast stuff for a long time, and he knows how to play the game. Now he comes into the strong suit for the BMW. It's the braking zone, and that's where he can really open things up just a little bit as we're back on board with Smedegaard. Great onboard shots here from Andy.
1, 2, 3. Thorne, Swenson, Smedegaard, Kerry James. Now add Matt Waldbaum to the top 5. 8 minutes remaining through turn 1. Thorne is really good through this section, but Swenson is keeping him honest through the entire rest of the lap. I just have to wonder, will Swenson lose the traction, the forward traction that he typically does later in the race? Will that leave him vulnerable to Andy Smedegaard behind him?
And we have 5 cars basically in that lead group. There's the 5th one, that's Waldbaum. Then a little bit of a gap back to his teammate Solomon. There is Matt Waldbaum, and he's really been, I think, a compelling story. This is his first season of door-to-door racing. Did some iRacing with the GRIDLIFE Winter Cup in the offseason to kind of get tuned up for it. But he stepped into real door-to-door racing very easily and very comfortably.
Tom O'Gorman went from 51st to 23rd in 3 laps.
Man.
That's going to be a heck of an onboard video later to watch, I'm sure. That is quite the climb. Heitkotter from about the same spot up to 37th. A good climb for him. Colton Wade up to 32nd. Look at Smedegaard dropping a tire in the dirt trying to grab some advantage.
Now you'll look for anything you can possibly get here side by side, working their way around turn 10.
That's Jorenstad and West Case. Door to door. Whoa, that's going to be a tight transition through 8 and 9.
Oh, that was out of 7, wasn't
Yes.
it? Yes. That's really close quarters racing.
Oh, man, that is tough stuff. Here comes the white BMW down the inside. West Case goes 3 wide. A touch, a slide. Jornstad gets a hit. He drops a tire in the dirt, keeps going. Huge slide. Here comes Kristoff now with an advantage. Passes one car now. That's West Case he gets by. That was a big moment, but they all came out the other side in the right direction.
Yeah, 3 abreast into the corner and no contact. A couple of moments, but no contact. That's pretty impressive stuff. And now this battle continues here as Kristoff right there has got the inside line. Can he make it work? He's there, but now it's the drag race, and I think that might go the way of Case.
Here comes O'Gorman in the background as well, past Jeff Preston. So O'Gorman's about to make himself part of this 3-horse race for about 20th place at the moment. Wow. Here he comes through.
What an outside move by O'Gorman. Got both of them around the outside of turn 1.
Here he comes now around the outside of Kristoff. Couldn't quite keep the momentum there. West Case, Ryan Kristoff, Tom O'Gorman. As it stands, there's still line astern here. 54 cars took the green. Big slide for Case. Kristoff is there. O'Gorman's just going to size him up and strike when he has the opportunity.
And look for Tomo. He loves working outside moves. He knows that car will work. Here he goes.
This is for 18th place.
This is in turn 6. This is a tricky corner.
Wow.
Just loops the outside, and Kristoff respectfully says, wow, that was nice. I got to give you that one. And now O'Gorman is through and will set off farther up the field.
The more work Tom does now, the less he has to do in race 4. We set race 4 from race 3 with an invert of a random number of drivers in the top quarter of the field. So that's worth considering. Here comes O'Gorman on Case now at the outside of turn 9.
And how much do you drive the invert? You hear that said a lot. You know, if you get up to 12th in a 55-car field, you maybe just park there and hope the invert helps you.
You're not going to know what it is until after you get out of the race car. But for now, O'Gorman continues his climb forward. If he could get a top 15 after starting dead last in a field of 50, that would be probably the new most impressive thing I've seen Tom do. I've seen him do a lot of impressive things.
Well, and the thing is, the choice you have to make in terms of driving the invert is the race finish more important to you or his points? You know, because if you push too hard to get up and you throw away, some points if you're up near that top 10, is it worth it to then end up starting way back in the other race if you throw it away? So, and Tom plays that long game very, very well.
Around the outside of Jornstad at the exit. Oh, he gets the door slammed on him there by Jornstad. He tried to do the outside move, but wasn't going to get it done that time.
Yeah, Jornstad is not known to be the easiest guy to pass in this paddock, and Tomo
didn't do many favors there either.
Not at all. So now, though, Tomo got him to pinch his exit out of 3, and that slowed him up enough, Jornstad up enough, that Tomo was able to just drive by.
And he grabs that spot as well, so move Tom up another position. Again, started in the very last row of the field. He is up now to 15th place,
That's
continuing
superb.
His surge forward. Half a second between the 2 race leaders. That is not quite as volatile as the battle we have been watching. It has been a fierce one. Look at Ryan Kristoff again sliding that very tiny little CRX, chasing West Case. Behind him, Jeff Preston is side by side. And there's Bill Griffin in the mix, Joel Morrison, Scott Robertson, Dan Capaldo, and more. Tyler Starr and Nick Sarter all in the mix. There's Colton Wade. He's also had a good climb forward.
Yes, he has. He figured, he said, this car has pace. And he said, so I'm starting in the back, but I've got a fast car, and I just got to drive fast but clean and make some moves, and he's doing exactly that.
So Colton Wade again started even further back than Tomo. And I'm going to get an update on the bottom of the ticker where he has made it to 30th place. That's plus 20 for Colton Wade.
That's stunning. Yep, really good job.
There's Bill Griffin in the Turner Motorsport car, chasing Jeff Preston. Great battle here deep in the field. Running low on time, about 3 minutes remaining in this race, Greg, and we've had some phenomenal battles, but Swenson is closing in a little bit, 0.3 of a second up to Thorne. And it's about 0.6 back to Smedegaard. Here's that battle. That doesn't look quite like 0.6. I think Smedegaard gained some ground in turn 3. And here's that front pack.
I think you're absolutely right. See that little flash of the brakes there? As Swenson just needed to settle the nose to get through turn 6 well. And Thorne doing just his car that's pulled off. Driver's left over there. Thorne doing just enough to keep Swenson behind him.
Didn't get a good look at who that was off track, but it's going to keep us green for now. They're off track far enough that they shouldn't be a concern. And there is some lap traffic up the road. This could bring in, that's Max Toyer. By the way, we should mention Max Toyer. He's been here on a work visa from Germany for several years, and he has to return home. And this is his final hurrah here in Grid Life for a little while. So we're going to miss you, Max, but heads up the back straightaway, goes a lap down to the race leader. Swenson pulls offline.
Max really showed some great racecraft and track awareness there, knowing who was coming up behind him, and just got out of their way, let them flow through, didn't cost anybody. Maybe Smedegaard just a tick, just because Smedegaard had to shallow his exit just a bit. But nonetheless, when you get into traffic, if Swenson can stay close and Thorne ends up losing a little momentum, then the horsepower of that Corvette could pay some big dividends here. But Thorne not one prone to making a lot of mistakes and losing momentum much.
Thorne, Swenson, Smedegaard still 1, 2, and 3. They've been in lockstep like this since the drop of the green flag. Thorne has not made a mistake yet, and that's why he's still leading. A little bit of a mistake, maybe turning in touch late, but he got down to the apex there and salvaged it. But it's a long ways back to Kerry James, so I think it's really going to be a 3-horse race for first place.
I think so. These guys have broken clear enough with the time remaining. All right, here's turn 6. It's where being a little agile like that BMW, you can see gains right at the exit point until that Corvette gets on the power just a bit. Thorne float, he's willing, he takes it way outside. Now here's that arc in we're talking about. Keep it to the right a little bit. Now flow, catch that apex curb, and just let her fly right here.
Into turn 10B now. Thorne, Swenson on the brakes, has a look, makes Thorne look up in the mirrors for a moment. It's only half a car length between the front two. 42 seconds remaining in theory here as we come up to what should be our white flag lap. Again, not set times here in this race, nor set distance, just rough approximations before the white flag gets thrown. And into turn 11, look at the gap that Thorne pulls on the straightaway. Look at how much, oh wow, Smedegaard locked up. He locked up trying to get to the back of the Corvette of Swenson.
Well, I think right now Thorne is managing this. White flag flies, and Thorne is managing this race masterfully at this stage. And you know what? The way that you can null out somebody who's got better top end is if you overslow them into the turn, and then you've got a nimble car that will accelerate well and get through that corner. And I think Thorne is employing that to absolute perfection.
White flag lap, final go here in GLTC race number 3. This is the last time around in the third race of the day.
Ooh,
big slide for Swenson, and Smedegaard is all over trying to pounce on the mistake.
And Swenson doing exactly what he had to do when he made the save. He just finished by placing that car right where Smedegaard was thinking about making a move.
Big bobble there for Smedegaard trying to reel in the number 30, but didn't get a great run through turn number 6.
Yeah, he ate a lot of curb, didn't he?
Yeah, a little too much probably. There's David Rudzinski up the road, so some lap traffic to navigate for Robert Thorne. Swenson trying to salvage what he can. He hasn't yet tasted victory this weekend. It's been all ASM so far between O'Gorman and Smedegaard, but Thorne now for ASM and Shaky Dog trying to steal one in the BMW.
And it's interesting, you know, when you manage a race like Thorne has, you don't necessarily show the guys that are chasing you everything you've got. And he may have done that beautifully and said, nope, believe it or not, guys, I got a little bit more left here. And on this last lap, look at the margin he's been able to open up.
Now, for second, that's where the battle's going to be. Andy Smedegaard fully in the slipstream of Jeremy Swenson. Corvette versus S2000. This is the Corvette's wheelhouse here. These long straightaways into the braking zone. Final corner for Robert Thorne. This season, his first runs in GLTC. GridLife Midwest Race 3, though, for Robert Thorne will be his first victory in GridLife Touring Cup. Robert Thorne wins at GingerMan Raceway. Swenson second, Andy Smedegaard third, Kerry James and Matt Waldbaum fourth and fifth.
Boy, what a race for Robert Thorne. And have to mention for Waldbaum, that's his second straight fifth now. He is right in the mix. Oh, we've got an incident here.
That is the 9 Lives Racing and Myriad Motorsports car, Joel Morrison and Bill Griffin. And I see a couple fender pieces popped off in off track there, off to drivers left. So those two cars have had a bit of a coming together. And I have to wonder if this maybe started with Morrison spinning and Bill not being able to escape the area there, but there is some passenger side impact there as we are coming to the checkers now. So the GingerMan safety crew will be able to go out and attend. You see Bill moving around in there and Joel Morrison as well. So that's great to see, but unfortunate to see those two cars tangled.
Really is. I mean, it had been such a clean race. You had close quarters racing, but no contact. I think your speculation, just from the way the cars are sitting, would be right. That maybe Joel had a moment and Bill could not avoid him. And they're just stopped. They probably both stalled trying to avoid the contact. So But once again, just a superb run up front. Jensen right there in 8th. Curley, I would have thought he would have maybe had something for Solomon and Waldbaum. Just couldn't quite get up there and do anything with it. And how about this for Louis Chatroop? We talked about he has very special, unique, let's put it that way, memories of this place. And to bring it home in the top 10, once again, I think it's going to be very, very special for Louis.
Yeah, and where was that? Where was that incident? I didn't see exactly what corner it was.
It looked like it was turn 10.
Yeah, so they might have already cleared.
Okay. Zach Lavoie, another 11th.
Oh no, this is not. This is this is 7.
That's 7 then.
Yep. So interesting to see, but you saw Andy Smedegaard in the in-car give the thumbs up to Jeremy Swenson. That's great to see. Those guys really enjoy racing each other. And with that, Thorne will collect a victory and add that one to the bucket. It will be the first of many, I imagine, here in GridLife Touring Cup. Swenson, Smedegaard, James, Waldbaum, Solomon in 6th, Curley you mentioned in 7th, and Jensen, Rosenberg, and Louis Chatroop in the rest of the top 10. Again, another top 10 for Rosenberg. He's really got that car in good shape.
Yeah,
Fiona
5th
Liu,
on the year.
They're just, okay, I thought she was involved in this, but they're just chasing her past the incident zone here. And these cars might be kind of hooked together, so it's probably hard to unseparate them here.
Exactly.
Or to, I guess, separate those two cars. With that, that's going to conclude GridLife Touring Cup race number 3 coverage. The rest of the day, here's what it looks like for you as we're going to step away for about 2 hours' time, and we'll be back with GridLife Touring Cup race number 4 around 5:30. We'll have our GLTC fan walk for those that are here as well. I'm looking forward to that. I'll be down there walking on the grid as we get prepped for our race. You see the drift cars lining up as we step away. We'll leave the cameras on turns 1 and 2 for you so you can watch those cars as they slide around and have some fun in our grip drift taxi sessions. If you're here, you could get a ride along. If you're not, you can watch it. Race 4 at 5:30, 5:45-ish will be the kickoff of that green flag. Then track battle and drift to end our day of coverage and our weekend of coverage here from GridLife Midwest. Well, Greg, that was a fantastic race. Wrapping things up for right now, your final thoughts on race 3.
Well, I think it was a masterful display by Robert Thorne of how you control a race when you're in a car that maybe in outright speed isn't as quick as those in pursuit. Got that lead early. We talked about how important that was going to be. Worked that one to perfection, managed the pace, had a little bit left in the quiver at the end that he was able to unleash and open up that margin. And it was just a great race to see in the battle between Swenson and obviously Smedegaard for those final two podium spots. Pretty intense as well. We'll
be back with you later for the final race as well as track battle and drift. We'll see you on the other side of about a 2-hour break. We'll see you there. Coverage of GridLife Midwest is brought to you by Momo. Made in Italy since 1964. And by Hyundai, it's your journey. Coverage of GridLife Midwest is brought to you by FCP Euro. Every part you buy is guaranteed for life. And by eBay Motors. Let's ride. And by Falcon. The Falcon Azenas RT660 is the official tire of Club TR.